Hi, my name's Greg Hargarten. I paint with a group of plein air artists called the Men Who Paint. In today's episode, we'll travel to the westernmost point of Canada and paint at Bonanza Beach in Haida Gwaii. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified when new videos are posted. Today, we're in Canada, in the province of British Columbia, 750 kilometers north of Vancouver, on Graham Island, in Old Masset. We're up and on the road early this morning, traveling south along the Yellowhead Highway from Old Masset, on our way to the west coast of Graham Island to paint on Reynolds Sound. Although it's just over 100 kilometers away, much of the trip involves logging roads, which will slow us down considerably. The locals have told us that the trip may take as long as 5 hours. So for now, we're enjoying the smooth sailing on the Yellowhead. Just 2 kilometers from Skidegate is a narrow gravel trail that leads to the most photographed site on Graham Island. Balance Rock is a large boulder left behind by the glaciers of the last ice age. It sits perfectly suspended on another rock's pointed head, defying the odds and centuries of thundering waves and high winds from the Hecate Strait. Surprisingly, not much of Haida oral history survives about the legend of Balance Rock. A smallpox epidemic in the late 1800s wiped out almost 90% of the local population, so many oral records have been lost. The Haida Cultural Centre is an award-winning Aboriginal cultural tourism attraction located just outside of Skidegate. The museum offers a fascinating look into the culture of Haida Gwaii. Haida knowledge, scientific information, natural specimens, oral history, and art all blend together in an amazing exhibit. This is definitely not to be missed. Skidegate is centrally located on the islands. It sits on the Island Highway and just a short ferry ride from Moresby Island and the airport at Sandspit. It's named after the chief of the village in the early 1800s, as was customary at the time. When Daniel Pender surveyed the waterway in 1866, he standardized the name for the inlet and the channel from Skitiaget, meaning red paint stone, to Skidegate. Well documented as a thriving community by the first European explorers, Skidegate became a hub for the early otter fur trade. During the smallpox epidemic, the surviving Haida left the ancient villages and regrouped in the communities of Skidegate and Masset. Today, Skidegate is one of the 2 cultural centers of the Haida Nation and the site of a strong Haida revival. Visitors can examine art and cultural artifacts firsthand and purchase beautiful Haida jewelry and crafts. We're back underway, and before long, we're on the Reynolds Sound Forest Service Road, a gravel logging road typical of many in Haida Gwaii. Although these roads are maintained regularly, the islands get almost 50 inches of rain in a year, so needless to say, these roads can get very rough. It feels like our rental van is being shaken apart. As the road twists up the mountain, we enter a clear-cut area. Logging started on these islands in the early 1900s, not long after the early settlers realized that agriculture was not really feasible. The easily accessible red cedars were first cut. World War II accelerated the logging. Sitka spruce was needed to manufacture the de Havilland Mosquito bomber, and it was then that the logging industry realized the islands were a major source of timber. After the grueling final descent from the Alpine area down to the shore, including a section that is one of the steepest public roads in North America, we finally reached the inlet at the end of Reynolds Sound. When you stand on the west coast of the Haida Gwaii Islands, nothing lies between you and Japan except for the great expanse of the North Pacific Ocean. It's great to get off the road and out of the van for a few photos, but soon it's time to get back on the road. There are lots of beautiful sights as we wind through the wilderness on the ever-narrowing road.
Dugal.
It says trail. This doesn't say road. That's probably near.
After another hour, we finally found what we think is the trail to Bonanza Beach. Now there is just a short half-kilometer hike to the beach.
Almost hard to keep walking because there's a painting every few feet.
This trail is lush and almost storybook-like, but there is still evidence of logging here, even in this remote area.
Look at the size of this log.
Here, the path is actually cut through a stump. The base of the original tree looks to have been at least 25 feet across.
Red cedar. It's red. Red cedar. Let's get rid of it.
Really? That's not 400 meters.
Yeah.
Finally, the beach.
Trying to get on the rocks on that side to see if I get that rock in front of that point, but then I realized they're almost exactly the same shape.
It's always best to take a bit of time and really get to know the area. Take some photos, scout for locations, and find a place with a good composition. Soon, everyone is settling in for an afternoon of painting. By the 1960s, 2.2 million cubic meters was logged a year. In 1974, negotiations began between the Haida and the Canadian government in an attempt to control the clear-cutting. Over the next years, the Haida created several petitions, committees, and partnerships in an attempt to stop the logging. In 1985, after years of repeated unsuccessful attempts, the Council of the Haida Nation decided to take direct action by forming a blockade. A campaign was also organized to protect Lyell Island from logging. It included protests and a cross-country media blitz from St. John's, Newfoundland to Vancouver, with public stops, concerts, and fundraising events. It received national and international media attention. As a result of the pressure from the media's coverage of the protests, the government entered into negotiations with the Council of the Haida Nation. And in 1988, the South Moresby Agreement was signed, designating Gwaii a national park reserve. The government agreed to co-manage the land with the Haida and committed to creating a marine agreement in the future. This is the largest sound on the west coast of Haida Gwaii, cutting 18 miles or 29 kilometers into Graham Island. The western shores of Haida Gwaii are ruggedly beautiful, with little refuge from the North Pacific. Reynolds Sound is at the southern end of the Dagoost Heritage Site. This is part of an archipelago-wide system of protected areas that includes Guayhanas National Park Reserve, Haida Heritage Site, several provincial and ecological reserves, and 10 other heritage sites. It covers over 27,000 hectares and extends from the western side of Naden Harbor along Dixon Entrance to Lengara Island and south along the Pacific coastline to Reynolds Sound. The area contains 18 estuaries that spill into the most productive marine habitat in Haida Gwaii. It also contains 18% of Haida Gwaii's fish-bearing freshwater and streams. These host coho salmon, chum salmon, pink salmon, sockeye salmon, dolly varan, steelhead, rainbow trout, cutthroat trout, and many other species. There are 88 recorded archaeological sites with an impressive number of cultural items. Many of these areas have not been inventoried, which means Dagoost likely contains many other unrecorded artifacts. The most common find on these beaches used to be the glass floats used on Japanese fishing nets. But lately all kinds of things have washed up. From enough dead jellyfish to make it look like a freak snowstorm has hit the beach, to hockey pads and Nike shoes spilled from passing freighters. Thanks for watching. Click like and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.